Hello and welcome to Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters, here with our very special guest, St. Ed's Principal, Mr. McKenna.
School community.
Cool. So this episode is all about school-wide operations. What are the biggest changes to St. Edward's this year?
Well, the changes are going to be relatively vast, and it goes from the ways that students will have their temperatures taken when they enter the building, to the way that lunch operates in phase one, to the way that classrooms are designed to keep everybody distanced, and hallways being one way and stairwells being one way, and kind of everything in between. So there are going to be a lot of differences. I don't think those differences will change the experience much, but they will. The typical instinct for how we operate in the school will take a little time to reset.
Right. Where will students be able to enter the school?
So students will be able to enter through two entrances. One is the new Commons entrance, and the second is the Kale Center entrance. And the reason we're limiting to two entrances is we've equipped those entrances with very high-tech thermographic temperature scanners. And so, I think we've all seen on the news students lined up waiting one by one to get their temperature scanned to make sure they're able to enter. The system that we invested in allows students to kind of walk in free-flowing, and they don't have to stop. And it's recording everyone's temperature and ensuring that everybody has a temperature that's less than 100 degrees Fahrenheit before they enter the building.
Wow, that's incredible. How will social distancing be enforced before and after school?
Yeah, so, we're very fortunate to now have the new Commons. Actually, St. Ed's has added 32,000 square feet of new space in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And so the timing couldn't be better. But we have an opportunity to spread people out, and we're going to be pretty vigilant about spreading people out and before and after school. Part of it is limiting the amount of time students can be here before and after school, and then making sure that we're staffing all of those areas appropriately, just to remind students of the distancing protocols, the masking protocols, and focusing on keeping everyone safe.
Absolutely. How will masks be enforced not only throughout the school day, but in clubs and activities throughout school?
Yeah, so masks are going to be required at all times. So as soon as you get out of the car in the morning, you're going to need to have a mask on. And with the exception of eating, or if you're able to take a kind of an outdoor mask break where you're at least 6 feet away from someone, everyone will have to be in a mask at all times.
Right. How will we maintain 3 to 6 feet of space in small classrooms with so many students?
Yeah, so actually most of our classrooms are pretty good size, and we're fortunate in that regard. We do have some smaller classrooms that we've repurposed for different uses to make sure that everybody is in a larger classroom, and the facilities department and the summer work crew led by Nathan Harden has done a phenomenal job of going into every space to ensure that the number of students in that space can meet that very specific protocol.
Right. So hypothetical circumstance, a student gets COVID. How will the school approach this, since one student can come in contact with so many others?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we're going to approach it obviously very seriously, and in partnership with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health to help deliver guidance on how we need to operate if a student is diagnosed and has exposed himself to others during the time that he's been diagnosed or symptomatic. I think the big thing that it's important for everyone in our community to understand and adhere to is, if you're not feeling well, to stay home, no matter what. So we've set everybody up to be able to learn from home, and I think we've all been used to waking up some mornings and not feeling particularly great, and say, well, I've got an important test this day, or there's the club or sport that I participate in has got a big contest or game that day, and I'm going to power through because I want to be part of that. And we're asking people to not power through, to stay home in order to protect everyone else. And they'll be set up to learn from home effectively, and as soon as they're better, be able to then come back to schools to keep everybody safe.
Right. Just don't be a hero through that.
Yes.
Are you considering keeping any of these quote-unquote temporary changes permanently?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think when we come back on September 16th, we'll have a sense for how the changes enhance the day-to-day experience of our students and faculty and staff. And I think we'll look at all of them, and if deemed to be an effective enhancement, then I wouldn't see any reason why we would eliminate them in the future.
Personally, I really like the like when you're feeling sick that you can just log into a Zoom call and be present in class. Because I know I have taken a few of those quote-unquote don't be a hero days.
Yeah.
And, it's just really hard to miss a test, because then you have 2 weeks of work that backs up. I personally think you should keep that. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of where we are societally, Zoom has got to be one of the most used both nouns and verbs over the last 6 months. And it's something that nobody talked about prior to March 12th.
Right.
And now, it's constantly like, hey, can you Zoom me? Or I'm going to be on Zoom, and we're talking about it all the time. And same with Google Hangouts. Google Hangout has been a tool that's been available to us for years, and we could have been utilizing it for years. It's the pandemic that's forced us to have to access this technology, and it's normalized the technology completely for us. I had to, last night I coached my third graders flag football team, but there was also a meeting that I had to be a part of that was a Zoom meeting. And I just had Zoom running through my phone and an AirPod in so I could continue to coach. And so in a lot of ways, it's made us a lot more efficient.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. How will we be able to move throughout the school without the mass spread of COVID-19?
So the core element of that is everybody doing their part to make sure that they're keeping their classmates, their teachers safe. And I feel like I've been saying this over and over to people. Certainly coughing, sneezing, breathing will spread COVID-19. Selfishness is as much of a spreader of COVID-19 as any of those things. And so this is really the opportunity for people to take a selfless approach to how they're operating, and to do their part to make sure that they're keeping everyone safe, whether it is wearing a mask, maintaining distancing, always listening to your teachers about the parameters that they have set up in their classrooms to keep them safe. And for me personally, I almost approach everything from the perspective that you have coronavirus and I have coronavirus, and if we don't want to spread it, we stay 6 feet apart, we keep our masks on, we do what we're supposed to do, and we'll keep each other safe that way.
Absolutely. What would happen if a teacher got COVID-19? How would they approach their teaching method?
Yeah, so if a teacher contracted the coronavirus, we would operate within the same protocols that we do for a student in terms of our partnership with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. And then we would make arrangements. It's in some ways it's a difficult question to answer because there's a hypothetical nature to it. We know that there are some people who contract coronavirus who have very, very mild symptoms to the point that they would probably not even know they were sick. And then there are some people who get, very, very sick with it, and kind of those cases in between. And so it would really be a case-by-case basis. We're well set up. We know, especially based on our policy of making sure everyone's staying home when they're sick, we know that we're going to need more substitute teachers this year, and we're well set up in that regard. And our teachers have designed their Power School pages and their curriculum to be able to be nimble and adjust really at the drop of a hat.
It's fantastic. I know it was very hard for faculty with what happened in March, everything just being dropped all of a sudden, and they had to learn how to teach an entire new course in 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like a superhero move of theirs. What concerns do the faculty have about this restart?
Yeah. So the thing I will say, and I've met now with every single member of our faculty. So in the month of August, myself and Matt Stemnowski and Nick Kuhar set up individual 1-hour meetings with every single member of the teaching faculty, and we wanted to ask them those questions. How can we support you? What concerns or anxieties do you have about coming back? So on and so forth. And we have a very committed teaching faculty who is very excited to be back with the students at St. Ed's. And we're addressing individual concerns as they arise and based on very individualized circumstances. But like I said, our faculty is phenomenal, and they're very excited to be back with their students.
Absolutely. It's an exciting thing that St. Ed's is offering to actually come back in person instead of more remote learning. Hypothetical circumstance, I know these are hard to answer, but if a vaccine is released, how will the school proceed?
In what way?
Like, what restrictions will go away? How will we go forward from there?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and in the hypothetical nature of it might make it a little bit difficult to answer. But I do think a vaccine is going to be a next step toward kind of societal normalcy for us. But I don't think, if a vaccine was released today, I don't think we're going back to normal tomorrow.
Right.
It's going to be a pretty protracted transition back to normalcy. And ultimately, it's just another tool to keep people safe. The flu vaccine has about a 50% effective rate. It did this past year, and so it's not like a cure-all for anything. But I do think we're now used to operating more carefully as a society, and I don't think those things will go away. But we'll be able to get back to a lot of the things that we love, maybe just with some modifications.
Right. And while we're talking about the transition to normalcy, when we do begin to move in that direction, what things will come back sooner?
Yeah, I think the opportunity for students to have a more typical class experience and a more typical community period experience. So more collaborative, like in-person collaborative work in classes, more opportunities for co-curricular activities during the community period, fans at games, the things that we love about a high school experience will start to reemerge again.
Right. If students don't follow protocol and the situation gets worse, what protocols would tighten and how would they tighten?
Yeah, we would really rely on both the County Board of Health and the state of Ohio to help us make a determination from a public health standpoint about what we need to do to keep everybody safe. That would be similar to what happened in March. Our responsibility is to educate, and it's to educate in a variety of ways. But one of the ways that we can educate our students and our community is in the ways that they can keep people safe so that we can continue moving forward with as normal a school experience as we safely can.
Awesome. If you had one message to send out to the community of St. Ed's, what would it be?
I think my message would be to be optimistic about what's ahead for us. This pandemic has been challenging at a variety of levels for everybody in the world. We're not facing this alone. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is reason for optimism. And I think having an optimistic mindset as we come into this school year is going to be so important in terms of, when we get to June 2021 and we look back on this year, if we start the year with an optimistic mindset, I think we're going to be really surprised about what we're able to accomplish over the course of the next school year.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate the interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. This has been Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters.